Hello, friends. This is the AlphaList podcast. I am your host, Toby. The goal of the AlphaList podcast is to empower CTOs with the info and insight they need to make the best decisions for their company. We do this by hosting top thought leaders and picking their brains for insights into technical leadership and tech trends. If you believe in the power of accumulated knowledge to accelerate growth, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Plus, if you're an experienced CTO, you will love the discussion happening in our Slack space where over 600 CTOs are sharing insights, or visit one of our events. Just go to alphalist.com to apply. Welcome to the AlphaList podcast. My guest today is Lee Zen, and it's a very personal special moment for me because Lee is the CTO of the first website I ever visited in my entire life. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you for welcoming on the show. And yeah, I'm honored, I guess, that we were the first website you ever visited.
I think that also applies to many of my guests. So, Lee, you're the CTO of Yahoo. You're operating a broad consumer portfolio: mail, finance, sports, news, search. And Yahoo is these days owned by a private equity company. So I think it was public first, like in the Marissa Mayer times, and then changed quite a lot. And I'm super interested what changed in the last years since that time, and how you got into the game, etc., and how you see the world out there right now. Super curious, and also the tech angle to it, like how I guess you have to deal with legacy quite a lot, with AI quite a lot. So super interested in that. Before we start, so I also discovered a personal angle. So you lived in Berlin for quite a while, worked for HelloFresh.
That's right. Yeah, I never lived in Berlin, but I did work. I was there pretty often, probably once a quarter, something like that. So I think I lived for a month, one summer in Berlin, but never lived, I guess, in the city.
Yeah, you only want to live there for one summer, right? You never want to hit it in the winter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Before we start with your history and Yahoo Insights, maybe we start with your early computing history and your nerd path, as I always say.
Sure.
What was the earliest moment when you thought, okay, computers are magic? Like, why are you doing what you do?
Oh, gee. Okay. So probably, go way back. I remember my dad brought home a computer when I was a kid. I think I was probably 10 years old or something. And I remember I saw him fire up MS-DOS and open up, actually it was Lotus 123 at the time, and doing spreadsheets and being like, what in the world is that? And then, he let me play around on, not in the spreadsheets, that would have been bad, but he let me play around on the terminal. And I was just learning some of the commands and figuring out what was going on. And that felt like magic, right? That you could type something and have output come back and manipulate this thing. That was very magic. And then I remember shortly after, probably a couple years later, kind of discovering how QBasic worked and running, kind of again, exploring on the computer. It's like, oh, what's this QBasic thing? And then running that and then finding the default demo programs and then be like, oh, you can actually tell this thing what to do. Because you saw the code behind the games. And then it's like, oh, okay, let me try to understand how to change the way the game works. And that was some of my earliest memories of working with computers and software.
So gaming and cheating, I guess, then.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually funny because I remember the two demo programs that came with QBasic at the time. One was the Snake game, and the other was Gorillas. And I remember, cheating in Gorillas to figure out, how do I make it so that the banana always flies in the other gorilla, right? Or how do I change the physics of the thing to my advantage?
And then ultimately you ended up studying IT, or what, how did you?
Sure. Yeah. So, I was always fascinated then with software from that point on, and I learned programming and I spent a lot of time learning different software, different languages and learning more about computers and software in general, building my own machines, right? Ultimately ended up studying computer science. It's kind of funny, actually, that was not for sure. When I entered university, I was deciding between applied physics and computer science. Those were kind of like the two areas I was most interested in, but ended up choosing computer science. And then actually also ended up doing my master's degree in computer science as well, with the specialization in AI.
Okay, cool. And I guess that is what you can use these days quite well at work again, or is that outdated knowledge?
It's I mean, a lot of it's funny, a lot of the original things we were studying at that time still apply today, obviously. We studied both a combination of statistical methods and also kind of first order logic inference methods, and I think those are actually super meaningful even today, right? So obviously, the deep learning revolution had not happened yet, and some of the beginnings of deep learning were present in a lot of what we were doing in university. Um, but yeah, so I think still very relevant today.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of developed nicely, right? In the last
Yes,
years.
indeed.
And do you know the history? Because that's when, like, I think many people that I know lost track a bit. What happened since Marissa Meyer is gone? Like, what changed? I mean, PE owned, Yahoo was taken private.
Yahoo is still one of the most visited sites on the internet, right? I think
Yeah.
that's probably the key thing for listeners to know is, we're still one of the most visited sites in really is still a top five internet company in the US. And across the board, right? Not just in general, but if you look at how we're performing in the various categories, news, finance, sports, mail, et cetera, we're still, the top three in all those categories. And so, it's still a very storied brand and well respected and well visited website on the internet. You asked about kind of what happened since the Marissa Meyer era. Um, you know, we were part of Verizon for a while before being sold to private equity. And then, yeah, obviously under private equity ownership the last few years.
And how does private equity life change the company in total? Can you say that? Like, are you allowed to say anything? Like,
No, of
how
course. I
does
mean,
that?
I think ultimately, private equity is great in the sense that, I think any company that's public is under a lot of scrutiny all the time, right? You're expected to have quarterly results, and I think we have an opportunity, being private, to really work on all the modernization pieces we need to do, and that's a big part of what we've been doing here.
Mm,
Going through this transformation journey, right? And do that without having the external Wall Street perspective all the
pressure,
time, right? Yeah.
the
So
pressure of
we
the Wall Street. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we get to innovate and find a way to reimagine the entire company, and we've done that over the last few years, right? In the last 18 months, we've updated nearly every pixel of every product and supercharging them with AI and refreshed experiences. We have a whole new homepage. The news at mobile app is brand new. You've seen all sorts of new features, I'm sure, in Yahoo Fantasy, Yahoo Sports, and so really, yeah, I think an opportunity to reimagine how we still do what we do in terms of the original mission of the company, right? We're still really here to help people, help them know what to do next, help them, figure out how to live their life, how to achieve their goals. Ultimately, we're here to help people, help consumers achieve their goals in life. And I
Mm.
think, having an opportunity to do that in a refreshed way is fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, cool. And I think the biggest challenge then, or one of the big challenges, is then to innovate while having to deal with like 30 years of history, right? I mean, I know tech. We both know tech. Like, if many people work on one product, that is not necessarily good, I would say, like, at least from my experience. I don't know
Sure.
about Yahoo. And that brings up some challenges. So being able to innovate while being able to also refactor, replatform, and reinvent. I think that's a huge challenge from my perspective. If I can play like the outside in view.
Well, I think any modernization journey is going to be challenging, I guess, right? But I think we're excited about how we can move faster than ever, right? Really, we're trying to, as I mentioned earlier, unlock that shipping velocity and do bold experiments and be smart about our risk taking. And so, I think on the one hand, yes, we have to deal with the 30 years of things that have been built over the many years, but at the same time, we can take a complementary approach, right? So, for example, um, we have been migrating a lot of our systems to the cloud. We're able to take advantage actually of the fact that we have all this physical storage in our data centers, and we can actually make them work together, and that helps us, have greater resiliency and helps us deliver a great solution to our customers without necessarily having to, throw away everything that's been built before.
And if I would ask you for your mode in tech, is that the fact, like not necessarily your technical mode, but your mode in tech? Is that the fact that you're able to move fast while still having to deal with that, or what would it be?
Well, I think for any consumer internet company, uh, velocity is a key differentiator,
Hmm.
right? Being able to respond to customer needs and being able to build the experiences that customers desire, and again, going back to our mission to help people fulfill their goals, right? I think, especially if you think about one of the things we talk about is the digital wilderness that people are trying to wander through, and how over the last 30 years, that hasn't really changed to some extent. People think, if you think about why was Yahoo originally built, right? 30 years ago, it was to help people navigate that digital wilderness. It's where do I go? How do I find the things I want to find? How do I make sure this is good information? And somehow, believe it or not, 30 years later, we still have that problem. How do we make sure that people are able to achieve their goals safely and securely and in a trusted way that, they want to achieve those goals? How do we do that? But that all comes back to, from you asked about moat. How do we do that quickly? How can we quickly get the right product into our customers' hands so that they can achieve those goals and navigate that digital wilderness?
Fast, I guess, as well.
Yes.
And what does that mean technically? Like, I guess, like if I look at your tech stack, I find whatever technology I touched in the last years as well. Like, or is it very strict?
No, no, you'll find a lot of the same technologies that other people are using. We are again, when we think about modernization, we're very much embracing all the modern software, technologies, including, for example, the cloud, right? We're using the cloud, and then obviously within the cloud, we're doing things in a very cloud native way. For example, Kubernetes across the board. We're utilizing a lot of various cloud services that are being offered by cloud providers. And so, yeah, really trying to, embrace a modern way of building software within our systems.
And Pulumi, I guess, because you work there.
No, so I'm not going to get into specifics about what we use in terms of our exact stack, but I'm definitely not, necessarily pushing my own previous biases, let's call it, into the teams.
Your dog food. Yeah. Eat your own dog food. No, just joking. But when you talk about velocity, I mean, you have a huge organization. What's your ideal setup from your today's perspective to kind of keep track of what is happening? Is it purely trust and having leaders in place that like uh, make sure that velocity is right, or is there like, do you use Dora, or what do you believe in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think obviously trust is a big part of it. I think in any organization, you have to trust your leaders and you have to trust
Hmm.
that your team can deliver. So obviously, there's trust. I guess, going back to whoever coined the term, trust but verify. And so there are a lot of mechanisms that I like to have to make sure that, I can understand the state of the organization, right? And so, you know, every month we have a monthly business review within my teams to understand, what's the delivery, how's the delivery been, uh, how are we tracking relative to our goals, and we set goals at the beginning of the year. So we have a lot of different mechanisms to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. A lot of those mechanisms are oriented around building, going back to velocity, rapid feedback loops. How quickly can we know if it's working? How quickly can we know if we should double down or pull the plug? How quickly can we know, if there's any kind of signal that indicates success? And so everything's oriented around operating that feedback loop, making sure we know what are the signals we're looking for, and having a scientific method, let's say, like having a hypothesis ahead of time. So we don't try to, p hack our way into success, and really setting up those experiments, running those experiments, and then, okay, based on the results of that experiment, how many more experiments can I go run quickly? And that experimentation, by the way, applies in multiple ways. It applies both to how we operate. So there's like a meta element of, okay, can we experiment on ourselves? And there's also obviously experiment on the product itself. Can we actually experiment with, what we're shipping to our customers?
And is there one, I mean, you talk about experiments, but is there one technical KPI that you also trust in that is maybe more like a proxy metric, that you attached before? Like, I don't know, per request, per
Oh,
engineer,
I
per
see.
week or something like that?
No, I don't think there's kind of one metric that tells us if we're successful or not.
Yeah.
I think, if I think about at the Yahoo level, right, I think we're often thinking about user growth. Are we really helping user engagement, right? Are we getting more users? Are those users more engaged? Are they actually getting what they want done?
Mm.
From an internal perspective, because I think that's kind of maybe what you're pushing on, there's no one single metric that tells us, hey, are all the engineering teams delivering at the rate and quality and et cetera, et cetera. Dora, for sure. I've used Dora before. I'm a big believer in Dora. I think kind of understanding the key Dora metrics is helpful, but there's no. I think Dora is actually an interesting example of it is very useful telemetry, in my opinion, for self improvement, but it is very hard to compare door metrics from team to team, right? Like the lead time to change on one team could be drastically different from another team's
Yeah.
for very good reasons. And so, to say like, well, you're 4 hours different from the other team, you must be worse.
You're all equal.
Is
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
it's not really meaningful. But saying,
Yeah.
hey, can I go from 17 hours to 16 hours to 15 hours? Can I improve on my own metric? I think is very meaningful.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And tracking that over time, like understanding over time like how velocity changes in a team, is what I also find meaningful. And then I guess you have stuff like SLIs, SLOs, on
Mhm.
top of that
Oh
per
yeah.
team or,
Certainly, yes, yeah. We track. I mean, we take operations very very seriously, obviously, and we're constantly looking at our metrics there as well.
okay. Okay. Would you describe your job, your day to day, as more as like the job of a portfolio manager? Because you have a huge portfolio of like even like almost companies, below yourself, or to what degree are you yourself involved in technical decisions? And where can you as a leader make a difference from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a combination of things. I guess portfolio manager is a pretty good term. I do think probably if I think about how much time I spend, doing various things, a good chunk of my job is portfolio manager. It is, thinking about, and I actually do take it. If you ask anyone on my team, I do take an investment view of this, which is, for every single thing we're doing as a team, what's the cost? And what's the expected ROI going to be for that activity we're doing? And how do I maximize yield across my portfolio, given the resources that we have, is something I am constantly thinking about. And so, in that sense, very much yes, I play that portfolio manager role. Um, but that would be, I think, if I thought about my job just as that, that would be pretty sad, I guess, because a big part of what I love about my role is getting to work with people, right? I think that's really what got me into management. Actually, is when I, going back to my nerd path or whatever. Um, at one point, I thought I was going to be in academia, or I thought I was just going to be working, in kind of applied research. And um, I had a manager at the time who conscripted me, let's say, into management, and she's basically said, "Hey, the team is growing a lot. I kind of need you to step up as a manager and take on some management responsibilities." And at the time, I was like, "I don't want to do that. That's the dark side. I want to spend my time doing research and hacking on code and stuff." But after I was forced into doing that, I really came to appreciate just how much I love working with people. And that's stuck with me ever since. Is at the end of the day, your greatest asset at any company is going to be the employees and the people. And I'm a big believer in that. And I love developing teams, working with teams, building culture, developing culture, building organizations, right? That um, are able to deliver. And what I think is so interesting about that too is I think you can actually like tell a lot of people this. I think you can take an engineering approach to doing so. And so I often think of my organizations as, things I'm engineering, let's say, where there's an API almost to, an organization, and uh, there's, certain capabilities or features that the organization has. And that's really a big part of my job also. It's not just to be the portfolio manager, but to really shape what that organization looks like, and to make sure that we have a great place for everyone who's working there.
I'd love to talk to you about AI, but first I have one question, which kind of is a nice follow up on that. Um, you considered yourself a nerd and you wanted to go more into research, etc. What is like if you look back, what's the last important piece of code you wrote personally, and when was it?
Well, I'm still coding today, I guess, right? So I guess it depends on how you define important. I have some fun side projects I'm working on, and those are important to me. So, for example, one of the side projects I've been working on more recently has been um, using AI to help actually classify and understand basketball plays.
Mm,
I love basketball. My kids play basketball, and I actually, you know, but I don't want to have to scrub back through all the film that I've recorded. And so I'm having AI help me scrub back through and take out interesting clips of like, oh, okay, here's an interesting place where, the defense could have been tighter or what have you. So that's important to me personally, I guess. So I'll say, even just the code I wrote a few weeks ago is probably some of the most important code I've written.
okay. Cool. That means that with your kids, whenever you visit a basketball game, you have a Raspberry Pi with you recording taking a video recording of the game then, or?
Oh no, what I'm doing is I'm just recording it on my phone, and then I'm
Okay.
bringing it back home, and then having it processed by this application
Cool.
I've written.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And I assume you also use AI or Cloud Code or whatever like these
Oh
days
yeah, yeah.
is fancy for
The
that.
thing
And
I just described, I built with some agentic coding tools. Yes.
okay. Okay, cool. And how do you see that? Like, how do you actually, or how does Yahoo utilize AI these days? And how do you see this, like entering the world of engineering and the world of your tech teams? Like, and how do you make sure, like, do you want to make sure it arrives? I guess yes, but like, do you want to make sure that like everyone adopts it and how?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do want to make sure everyone adopts it, and I think during my tenure here, we've really shifted from AI as a tool. Kind of when I started, I think a lot of us were using AI as a chat prompt, basically, right? And now I think more and more of us are really adopting AI as a coworker. And I think that's a big shift because it's not just this interrupt driven back and forth, but really finding ways to have AI be more agentic, right? And actually doing tasks in the background on your behalf. And we're doing that across the board. By the way, we kind of talked about how are we as a company using it. It's affecting how we build, right? And so that's on the development side, everything from AI assisted coding to testing to how we run our operations, to how we work, right? So can we actually get better business insights using AI? Can we have AI help us understand how we do business or find business opportunities for us? And then how we serve, how are we actually helping our customers with AI? And across those three different dimensions, I think we've been both trying to experiment quite a bit and also making good progress on all three fronts.
Okay. And for the folks in engineering, is it like, I mean, I know many organizations where it's really hard to kind of, and the people are not the problem, but the people are kind of the ones stalling down the progress a bit because, like everyone has to learn it, right? And everyone has to learn how great it is, and everyone has to learn how to self accelerate. I mean, I see it as like a big, uh, yeah, exoskeleton for every engineer, right? Like even like a bigger thing, maybe like a mechatronic robot that everyone now owns.
Sure.
And, and how do you make sure that everyone discovers that or goes through that understanding? Is that like per definition if you just spend enough time with it, or do you make sure that like I don't know, career trajectories are shaped on behalf of that, like, or like how do you ensure that
I mean, I
happens?
think this goes back to, building organizations, right? It's not just one thing. It's a lot of
Yeah.
different things to help make sure we end up shaping the organization the right way. For sure, one of the things we've been doing a lot is just encouraging everyone to go use it. Like, I've had a few opportunities to talk in front of the whole company, and during those opportunities, really making sure people know, hey, this is part of our jobs now, and this is important, and here's why, and here's how we want to use it. Um, and I think the other part of it is, training, right? We're providing lots of training opportunities internally for folks to learn some of these technologies. And not just training, but also I think, especially because some of it's so new, is showing and telling. And so providing forums for people to see, okay, how are other people internally using it? How are they benefiting? How is it actually working for someone else? What are some of the use cases they have? And so doing that as well. Um, and I actually think, because you mentioned the exoskeleton thing, I think one thing that's also difficult actually about deploying AI, let's say, within an organization is it's not just a new tool. I think that's maybe where a lot of people sometimes get tripped up is it's not just a new tool, it's also changing the way we work. And so it's not like you can just adopt your existing ways of working to using AI. You have to actually, in some cases, think about, okay, is my process even correct? Like, is this process still right? You can't just put AI into the existing process. You may actually have to change the process or change the way we make decisions or change the way we work. So, super simple example is just around documentation, right? Or how we write things down. Before you never had to think about, well, hey, how do I make sure an agent can consume this information? But even just making sure that the information is consumable by agents, I think is kind of a prerequisite now. Because we talk about that, right? And similarly, you know, again, going back to how you shape organizations, like as part of our interview process now, we actually ask people, hey, if you want to use AI, go for it. Use AI. And in fact, we encourage you to use AI as part of our interview process because we think it's part of how people should work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I see that also happening in schools a lot where I'm not sure, is that right? Like, is that the right moment to adopt it, or what does that lead to, right? And what do we have to learn tomorrow? I think, one challenge I've been dealing with, or one thing I'm observing is the fact that also many engineers don't necessarily feel good with it because it changes the way they solve problems personally, right? And it changes perspective and also the, let's say, reward mechanism, right? Beforehand, like the reward mechanism was like move a ticket from left to right. I mean, a bit simplified, right?
Sure.
And there was like a clear description given to them, while now they have to make the description and they have to describe the problem, and they have to like sometimes take the perspective of the consumer. Is this, you think, a change that will even accelerate further, so that like every engineer becomes a product manager, every product manager becomes an engineer, everyone becomes like a mini CXO, or just a full stack engineer? Or where does your, like, how does your current imagination look like?
I mean, I think it maybe gets closer to the everyone's a product manager level of things. I think, I guess in my estimation, I don't know how much people will need to interact with programming languages as we know them today on a day-to-day basis, right? But I think at the same time, uh, software engineering is not going away. I think that's the thing I really emphasize with both my own teams and when I talk about this with other people. That's kind of my fundamental belief that software engineering itself as a discipline does not go away just because AI is here, right? The same principles, I guess, if we think about the software development lifecycle, will still apply, and it still requires our critical thinking to make sure that that is applied in the correct way, right? So, if you think about testing and you think about security, and you think about, all those different aspects of the entire life cycle, they don't just magically go away because we have AI. We still need people to think critically about, okay, how do I do the testing, or how do I make sure this is secure? And we can use agents for sure to help us do all those things, but it doesn't obviate the actual needs of those critical aspects of everything that engineers do. And so I think it will change how we work. It will change kind of, and there will be dissonance, I guess, because now I'm doing different things, but the fundamental job, to your point, like of moving something from left to right, doesn't go away, in my opinion. And I think just how we do that will change a little bit. And again, I think everything we've learned
And the
from it,
scope maybe of the things you
and the
move from
scope,
left
that's
to
true.
right,
That's
right?
true.
Yeah,
Yes. But I
yeah.
think everything we've learned from a practices perspective of like what makes someone a great software engineer in terms of, their understanding of what is good architecture, what are good patterns, how do I think about observability, for example, those kinds of things don't just go poof, just because we have AI.
Yeah. What was your recent moment when you thought, okay, this is a miracle? Like, I mean, I every once in a while have it, like playing with Claude or whatever, and just think like, hey, this isn't possible. Like, I don't believe that. Like, is there anything you remember?
There's always times where I think I'm interacting with some kind of whether it's because an agent did something on my behalf autonomously after some period of time, or maybe like if I could think of an example more recently where I was actually kind of playing around with understanding something about myself, because it was basically trying to diagnose some like health issue I had. And I was very surprised at how well it did, because it basically helped me eliminate a lot of different things that I wasn't sure about. And basically, I was able to start trying out some of the things that were being suggested, which worked pretty darn well. So it was actually very surprising, I guess, in that regard.
But no crazy agentic move on a computer where it took over and just like made you shiver because like things just worked out.
Not recently, no. Not that comes to mind.
Lee, you have quite a lot of like interesting consumer products under your umbrella as well, such as mail, news, finance, etc. Um, where do you actually use AI to delight users, and not just add a feature label? Is that really something where you also partly think about like how we make a difference these days? Like, I mean, like I don't know, many people use Gmail, right? Like, and there are many other ideas out there, and many other methods out there. Like, do you adopt any of those, or do you like how do you see your role there?
No, I mean, I think the point isn't just to throw AI everywhere and have AI slop, obviously. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. We're really trying to pair the technology with human creation to deliver relevant and engaging content, and to ultimately help users achieve their goals, right? And so, if you look at a lot of what we've done in mail, for example, we have catch up, right? So you can know what's going on with your mail, or in news, key takeaways, or in fantasy, we have, AI powered player insights. And so it's about, making your daily life easier, and not necessarily, just throwing the AI label on there for the sake of doing so. And as I mentioned earlier too, we're also trying to combine that with, human judgment, right? That's still a big part of our core value is to add that human layer of input, so that people can actually, get that tailorized and curated experience that users expect from us.
If you look at your top three engineering problems at consumer scale today, what is it? Is it latency, cost, reliability, abuse, data, or what is it?
I think cost is definitely one of them. I think for sure, consistently finding ways to optimize how are we actually delivering to customers is for sure, and what I would consider an engineering problem, especially at the scale at which we're delivering. Every time we do anything slightly inefficient, ends up, adding up to a lot of dollars, right? And so, cost is for sure an engineering problem that I think is in my top three. I think velocity is actually in that top three as well, where again, we really want to be able to go fast. And, in a safe way though, and with a high quality. And so that's, I think, a perennial engineering problem for anyone working in the consumer space.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so I think those are the ones that come immediately to mind for me.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot. Then I still have a little surprise for you.
Sure.
Yeah. Back in the Marissa Meyer days, there was an Easter egg silently introduced to Yahoo Finance, which is like a hidden date picker. You can use to like go back in time and buy Bitcoin if you want, right? Or just like travel back in someone's life and potentially change things like and I'd like to like virtually travel back in time to the year 2006 when you worked at Microsoft as an applied researcher. And I mean, maybe you would whisper, ditch research. I don't know, go to leadership straight away. I take that away from your option space. Then you now have a chance to whisper something into your much younger, not much younger ears. What would it be?
I think it's believe in yourself and love yourself. Um, I think early on in my career, I had a lot of imposter syndrome and didn't have a lot of confidence. And I think, yeah, I would just tell myself to believe in myself and love myself, to let myself, be willing to make mistakes and forgive myself for those mistakes.
Okay. Yeah, very good answer. And yeah, I hope you learned that on the way. I mean, you have like you had a great career so far. I'd say, like, just looking at all the different like great companies you worked at. So I think you hopefully received some recognition there.
No, yeah, I mean, that's why I would tell myself, earlier on that information. Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot, Lee. Was great talking to you. Really, really proud that we made it. And I finally got to meet the CTO of the first website I visited. Thanks a lot for that.
It's been a pleasure and an honor, and thank you for having me on as a
Thanks.
guest.
Bye bye. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the AlphaList podcast. If you like this episode, share it with friends. I'm sure they love it too. Make sure to subscribe so you can hear deep insights into technical leadership and technology trends as they become available. Also, please tell us if there is a topic you would like to hear more about or a technical leader whose brain you would like us to pick. AlphaList is all about helping CTOs getting access to the insights they need to make the best decisions for their company. Please send us suggestions to cto@alphalist.com. Send me a message on LinkedIn or Twitter. After all, the more knowledge we bring to CTOs, the more growth we see in tech. Or, as we say on AlphaList, accumulated knowledge to accelerate growth. See you in the next episode.
Dieser Podcast wird produziert von Podstars bei OMR.